Oh, no, it's okay. Way to go, Hansi. So tell me what this is exactly before.
All right. So let's start over. So I'm just talking with artists, about their craft and about, the pandemic. And so why don't we start with, this is my friend, Kasey Lansdale, and she's a writer, a actor. You're a polymath. How many things do you? What else do you do? A musician?
Yeah, it's funny. It's just been so, all of the things that I love and have done before, I've had to navigate and do differently and kind of lean into. I was just saying that, music is my first love. Music is what I really have always been drawn to. But during pandemic, the idea for people of watching a screen for another hour of someone singing was not as interesting to them. I mean, it's one thing when you're live and you kind of get that energy and you play off the crowd. But the few things that I did online, I wouldn't say they didn't feel good, because of course singing always feels good, but it wasn't as rewarding, not only for me as the performer, but I could put a pin in that and just accept, like, okay, it's less rewarding for me, but it was not as rewarding for the viewer or the listener. And that was something that early on in pandemic I understood, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to write music in this time and maybe let that be the way that I indulge my musical interest. And I kind of shifted more and did a lot more fiction writing. And then I've also done some other things behind the scenes. One of the great things, the only in-person job that I did last year during pandemic, was a short film, and that was Ron Perlman in it, and it's called The Caddy, and they just released that after the full year. And that was the only in-person job I did almost all year. Everything else has been behind the computer, doing something creative or learning a new craft. I mean, in the last year, if you ever said, like, hey, are you going to learn how to crochet? I never would have said yes. Now I'm like over here making hats, I've moved on to socks, and it's been, I've learned how to do things in ways that I never thought I would. And I've also enjoyed it in ways I never thought I would. The idea originally of being home and sort of not able to travel and sort of stuck. I still want to be able to do all those things, but what I'm enjoying is sort of feeling like I'm getting to, from here forward, make the decisions to travel to places I truly want to go, to do things I truly want to do. And I'm hoping that I can kind of hold that that ability as we move forward, because as we move forward and more people come out into the world, I think it's going to be harder to say, no, I'd like to stay home, because it's not necessarily that I want to maintain my hermit life, which, depends on the day.
There's but I want to,
yeah, but I want to be able to make the decisions that feel good, not the decisions I feel like I have to make.
Right.
And so it's a lot of soul searching. It's a lot of, what have I been putting together, like all the pieces of my creative life, of my work life, and how does that reflect what I truly want out of my future? And we're all kind of having that sort of 360 view of all of those questions. And it depends on the day, I mean,
yeah, totally.
Great. And then the next day I'm like, oh my God, I'm ready to get out. So it's also sort of like we're all going through that process, the stages of grief. Like, we're going through the acceptance and then the denial. And I think we're all going to be going through that for a while before we truly sort of calibrate.
We all have PTSD now. Yeah. I mean, that's for sure. This whole country is,
Yeah.
But I have found, talking to all the creators I know, that they've, found having the time, to just think and be creative without the pressures of like having to go out and promote or and kind of a nice time to kind of decide what's your art, what
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me I don't want to say because what always sort of propelled me forward was the pressure. And so I felt like, you've got to get this done. You've got to do this. We've got to be here at this thing. We've got to release this. So that sort of frenetic energy is what sort of drove me forward. So when all of that energy stopped and it was just like, whoop, I was like, oh, okay, well, what's the rush? So I went from sort of being a real machine of turning out product to sort of like, all right, I'll
I
work
guess
on
I'll
this
learn to
today.
crochet.
I'll work, yeah, like, but I guess today I'm just going to make 300 hats. So I think in a way my productivity stalled. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, because the other side of that coin is I have been churning things out for the last 15 years without hesitation, without pause. In my family, we've
I
always,
know. I know.
and you know how we are. It's like, and that's how we operate. And so I think this was the first time that I had permission to slow down. So I think in a way it was like a welcome slowdown. And now as we start to ramp back up, I'm trying to say, okay, as a person, what are the things that I want out of life? As a creator, what do I want out of life? And I'm sort of having to match my personal goals with those creative goals, because I don't want to be somebody who's on the road 300 days a year. I just don't. It was never fun for me when I did it. I enjoyed performing, and I enjoyed meeting people, and I enjoyed getting to see interesting places. But on the other side of that coin is it's hard to maintain any kind of friendships, relationships,
A
routine,
dog.
stability, a dog, anything. I mean, and these are all things that I want in life.
Yeah.
And
You
I
just
also,
need to figure out the way, for
yeah,
you to juggle that.
right. And what I'm finding is that people now are so much more lenient, because now we do have the, not only the ability, because we've had the ability, but we have the understanding that everybody has the ability. Now it's, you can call my 86-year-old grandmother, and she's got a smartphone now, and she's texting, and we're doing photos, and none of that was happening before pandemic.
Yeah.
It sort
Yeah,
of
that's
forced
true,
everybody.
actually. I mean, I Skype with my grandson like almost every day now. Whereas, yeah, when I used to see him every couple months.
Yeah. And it's just more on our conscious. And I think also mortality was sort of brought to us on a silver platter.
Yeah,
So the people that we want to be in touch with, and the things that are important to us, we're making more of an effort.
yeah,
I don't know how
absolutely.
long that will maintain, because human nature will take over itself. And I already feel us like making a plan for this month and making a plan for and I'm like, I want to do all these things, and I want to do them when it makes sense and it's safe, and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't want it to be like before times
Right.
where I'm gone every single weekend. I'm exhausted from travel, and I'm not enjoying it. So the joy of all of those things was taken away, and I didn't realize it. And so, it's sort of, it's just been a lot of revelations, and that's it. Is just like, how do I continue to be creative and live the life that I want, and what does that mean, and who was affected during this time? Like my parents, as I told you, my dad's a writer. His life basically exactly the same. My mom's life basically
Well,
exactly the same. They went out to eat less, and they didn't travel as much.
yeah.
But their work output and their relationship, all those things are the same. And so people, you hear about everybody like getting divorced, and everybody, and maybe some of those people shouldn't have been together, but I think about them, like they've worked together in the house for 45 years.
They're fine.
Both of them being home was fine, and I'm not, that's great for them. I mean, I know that doesn't work for everybody, but that's the life that I like. That's the life that
Me
I
too.
understand, and the life that I want.
Yeah.
So how do I recreate that with my passions? And then, my dad and I are working on some projects. And so that's always kind of fun. So I've got my projects, our projects, other projects that I'm doing with other partners. And then even things that, the yoga has always been something that's a part of my life in the last 10 years, really heavily, but exercise and fitness. And I will say during COVID, it's the first, again, like everything, I went from being someone who was always active and doing these things to like, and I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing, but living in that space is not going to work.
Yeah.
But I've been able to sort of pursue more with my yoga, and doing it less physically and more on the philosophy side, the understanding of the art, and I think about, the problem is, and I'm sure you've run into this, everybody wants to put you in the box. You are this. You are this, or you are this genre, you are this creator. And it's like, well, today I want to do some yoga. Tomorrow I want to crochet some hats. And the next day I want to work on my novel.
Yeah.
Okay. And then next weekend, let's go do a gig. So it's both a blessing and a curse, but it's also, I'm
It's
so
also
grateful.
authentic.
It's authentic, and I'm grateful that I had other skills to lean on.
Yeah.
Because what I know is a lot of my musician friends, they suffered in a way differently than I did.
Yeah.
And because even though I had a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you can't do music, but at least you can write." And on one hand, I thought, well, I miss doing music, but on the other hand, I thought, well, at least I do have that. You're not wrong. It's fortunate that there's a pivot there and an established pivot.
Yeah.
So, that was something that at least I could feel that had a focus. There were days I would go out and write in the morning, and it made my day pass. And especially in the early days of pandemic, when it was really so many unknowns, I was grateful to have something that made the day go by.
Yeah. I went through so much stuff getting this film to where it is now. At this point, the only way I can get my brain around it anymore is when the next step happens, when I get delivered the DVDs, then I'll figure out the next thing, because I just can't, I mean, I have ideas about what I have to do still, but it's like one thing a day, because
Well, and that's sort of a trauma response too. It's like, because you can't, I think all of our brains really kind of short circuited a little bit, and we're all having to kind of come out of that fog. And I mean, study after study shows that that's a real thing. So
yeah.
putting too much emphasis on the future, because another thing we've learned is, well, we can make a plan and it may not work out. And we've known that, but we had to truly experience it globally and collectively in a way that we've never had to, definitely in my lifetime.
No, not in our lifetime. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, it seems to be getting better. There does seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
There is a light. Well, to me, and maybe this is just because this is how my brain works, there's always been a light at the end of the tunnel. I never thought like, well, we're going to live this way until we die. I mean, myself, maybe for the unfortunate people who passed on, but they did. But I never thought this is it. This is the rest of my life. What I thought was this is lasting much longer than I would like it to. And it's very, and that's two different mindsets.
Yeah.
A mindset of knowing there's an end is different than thinking this is never going to end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's sort of something I had to really hold on to. And the other thing that's interesting is my global friends, my friends in Italy, my friends in South America, my friends in India, all these people, they're having a collective and yet very different experience as well, because we went from what we went from to having a grown-up in charge. And so it seems like we're propelling forward, and we are. However, you talk to other people in other places and they're back in some lockdown. I think my friends
even
in
Canada doesn't have the vaccine yet, which is crazy.
It is crazy. So, it's like we are moving forward, and yet we're not out of the woods. And it's all of those things that we kind of have to balance to have hope, and to also be realistic, and to maintain doing things that make sense and that feel safe. And then on the other side of the coin, doing things so that you don't go insane, and making choices that are healthy. I mean, whatever, if you don't want to get vaccinated, okay, fine. But all I care about is the people around me, because then the people who aren't, well, then you get to suffer the consequences. That becomes your baby. But I would love if everyone would say, yeah, let's speed this up and do something for the collective good. And what has been nice is that most people are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been sort of one humanitarian moment after another throughout this whole year, even in spite of all of the chaos. And maybe that's because that's what I choose to see. But, I like seeing the moments where people are banding together and helping. And
there's been a lot of that, or protesting, and, a lot of support for different groups from different groups. So, I think that's a good thing. I think we're on the start of something good.
I hope so. I mean, I would hate to think that all of this that we have been exposed to and experienced was for naught. You know, if we did not learn any kind of lesson, then that is very sad. So hopefully, at least individually, people have gotten something out of it.
And on those words, I think you pretty much nailed it. So, where can people find you? What are you working on right now?
Well, I actually just teamed up with a friend of mine who's a songwriter, and we're creating a really extensive catalog of some of our backlist and some new work. And so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And then my father and I just started a new secret project.
Ooh.
And yeah, and I would say it's the first thing that we've done together in a while that trying to think of the best way to phrase this, because I'm always excited when we work together, but I think this is maybe the most involved I've felt in anything we've done, because it's really from conception. You know, we had that short story collection that we put out, and that was great, but it already came from an existing character he had, and it came from an existing character that I had, and then we put them in the same universe. Whereas this is something that we're both creating together from the ground up. And that's a different feeling, because you're having to learn all of these different things about the characters and go, oh, okay, I see that. I didn't expect that. And that's really exciting. And getting to do it with my dad is always great.
Yeah, he's a master.
He's a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed working with him. He taught me a lot about
That's
story and stuff.
Well, he loves you. So yeah.
He's very sweet.
Yeah.
Your whole family is really sweet. So, let me know if you're doing anything and you want people to know. If you want to send me some links to add to this. So
yeah, you know what? Everything, KaseyLansdale.com is the easiest, because it has all my social links. I've been less active specifically this year, but lately, just because mental health, man, I needed a break, and I think it just was a good time to sort of not be focused on that. And so I am there, but I'm less active, but I intend to sort of ramp that up again when the time is right.
Yeah. I mean, it's spring. Stuff's just starting to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like a little budding flower. As soon as I emerge from the ground, I will be back in the internet. The internet.
The interwebs.
Yeah. Well, and it's been, like I was telling you before we recorded, I've had a lot of really.
Before I was smart enough to hit the record button.
I didn't say that. But it's been a lot of positive personal changes for me, and so I've enjoyed having the time to do that. That's been a really nice experience, to be able to set up a new home and to be with my puppy and all of those things that
sounds great.
I would not have done a year ago. It wasn't on the table.
Yeah, well, you were running around then, and now you realize you like being home part of the time.
Yeah. And it is what it is, and nothing like sharing a 1-bedroom apartment to make you go,
When you get your space. I understand.
So, yeah. But yeah, that's all it. But I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, always fun to talk to you, honey. We'll talk soon. In fact, I will, blast it, once the DVDs are here.
Blast it.
We got a really cool new commercial. And
Easy. That's right. Yeah, thanks, Hansi.
Okay. Bye, Kasey. Give my thanks to the family.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.